billion high-speed rail link to Guangzhou. But in an embarrassing setback just hours later, the academic named as the head of the team pulled out due to a possible conflict of interest. The government says it's determined to get to the bottom of the high-speed rail link fiasco. MTRC executives admitted 2 weeks ago that the $67 billion project would be delayed for 2 years due to unforeseen difficulties. The bombshell announcement triggered an uproar, and this evening, Transport Chief Anthony Cheung tried to address concerns over the problem by setting up a 3-member investigation panel.
This is an expert panel to examine all the systems, processes, practices, and other modus operandi relating to the implementation of the Express Rail Link project.
Cheung said former Hong Kong University Deputy Vice Chancellor Lee Chuk-fan would head the team. But in an embarrassing twist for the administration, just hours after the announcement, Chinese media reports said Lee was in fact the non-executive director of Paul Y Engineering, a contractor involved in the rail project. Paul Y is also one of the firms in charge of the $3.3 billion West Kowloon terminus, which is one of the causes of the delay. At around 7 p.m., Lee responded to media inquiries, saying he will not take up the post to allay concerns about a possible conflict of interest. The Transport and Housing Bureau confirmed Lee's post in Paul Y shortly after and confirmed he would not be involved. It didn't say who will replace him or even who the other 2 members are. But judging by the speed at which the government scrambled to gather the team, we may find out sooner rather than later. Earlier, the transport chief denied allegations that the government was forced to act fast to address the railway delay because of mounting public pressure.
It is not a decision made suddenly. In fact, after the delay was known, and we have carefully studied the public reaction. And we feel that, first of all, of course, the administration is gravely concerned about the delay and about the factors leading to the delay. And secondly, we understand that there is widespread public concern about the matter.
Cheung said the team's report will be made public. The MTRC is also facing problems on its Sha Tin to Central link. Construction work has been disrupted after the discovery of ancient artifacts and structures at the planned To Kwa Wan station. These include large square wells and dwelling structures believed to be from the Song dynasty. Members of the Antiquities Advisory Board who visited the archaeological excavation site today said more items could be found.
We were told loud and clear by MTRC that all works will be stopped. All works related to the Sha Tin Central Link will be stopped. That said, any work you find on site within that area is all related to archaeological survey and excavation.
The Sha Tin Central Link is a 10-station line connecting Tai Wai to Admiralty and is planned to begin service in 2018. The Inland Revenue Department says it collected a record $243 billion for the past financial year. But the department warned a filibuster in LegCo could jeopardize budget initiatives that benefit residents. Arthur Urquiola reports.
The Inland Revenue Department said a record amount of money has gone into the public coffers. For the 2013-14 financial year, the department collected $243.5 billion, up 1% from last year. About $55.6 billion came from salaries tax, with the amount rising by 10%.
There are several reasons contributing to an increase of 10% in the salary tax collection. One of which is that because tax rebate for 2012-13 is 10%. Sorry, what? $10,000. The ceiling is $10,000, whereas for the previous year the ceiling is $12,000. So there's a decrease in the amount of tax rebate. Secondly, we saw an increase in the overall salary and pay earned by our salary taxpayer.
However, revenue from profits tax was down by about 4% to $120.8 billion. Stamp duty was down about 3% to $41.5 billion. The department forecasts total revenue of $242.7 billion in the current financial year. Wong warned that initiatives announced in this year's budget, including increased allowances and reductions in profits and salaries taxes, are being jeopardized by a filibuster in LegCo.
On top of that, now we have introduced the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013, which concerns double stamp duty. If the filibustering goes on, then the progress of these two bills will definitely be affected.
The department said nearly 2.4 million tax returns are being sent out and have to be returned by the 3rd of June. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Political parties and other groups have been flocking to the government's headquarters to submit proposals on political reform ahead of tomorrow's deadline. Members of grassroots party, the ADPL, were also at Tamar to make their voices heard. ADPL members holding bamboo sheaves demonstrated outside the government's headquarters at Tamar this morning to demand genuine universal suffrage. The pro-democracy party urged the authorities not to endorse any proposal that screens out chief executive candidates who are critical of Beijing. To drive home their point, ADPL protesters threw the sheaves at a woman wearing a mask of acting chief executive Carrie Lam, the government's point woman on constitutional reform. With just a day to go before the first round of political consultations ends, other political parties rushed to submit their electoral blueprints to Lam. Among them was the Civic Party, which is pushing the Pan Democrats' three-track proposal, allowing ordinary voters, political parties, and the official nominating committee name candidates to run for the city's top job in 2017.
Mrs. Lam earlier on wanted that we should give her a path to walk. The best way forward to find that path would be that the government actually announces a proposal so that we could discuss based on that articulated proposal. That would be best.
The Business and Professional Alliance suggested that the nominating committee copy the structure of the current 1,200-strong election committee, with members coming from 4 categories.
While, there's demand to expand different sectors on it, but I think that will create a big argument who's going to get in, who's going to get out, and by throwing, the towel in the heated debate, you'll never end, you'll never get consensus on 2017.
On the related development, the leader of the Occupy Central movement, Benny Tai, took to the airwaves this morning to promote the group's 3rd deliberation day on Tuesday. Tai expects as many as 2,000 people to show up and choose from the 15 political reform proposals picked by organizers. The 3 most popular plans will be voted on in Occupy Central's de facto referendum on the 22nd of June, and the winning blueprint will be championed by the civil disobedience group. Tai said a special ceremony will be staged after the annual 1st of July protest to enable Occupy supporters to publicly proclaim their backing for the proposal that secures the most votes. A suspect in the attack on 2 newspaper executives has been denied bail when he appeared in court this morning. And in another case, a Canto pop star has been ordered to perform 80 hours of community service for leaving his autistic son at home while he visited the mainland. Arthur Urquiola reports.
Cantopop singer Dominic Chow was back in Eastern Court today to hear his fate after admitting last month that he left his autistic and epileptic son at home for more than a week while he visited the mainland. 2 of Chow's friends took the 13-year-old boy to school each day and stayed with him until the evening. But the court heard that Chow's son from a previous marriage was left alone at night in their Happy Valley flat. The singer was ordered to perform 80 hours of community service for neglect, with the judge warning that his sentence would be reconsidered if Chow failed to complete it. Chow, his wife, and daughter were on the mainland in May last year, when a neighbor saw the teenager on his own outside the flat and alerted the police. One of the suspects arrested in connection with an attack on 2 newspaper executives was denied bail when he appeared in the Kowloon City Court this morning. Chung Wai-chung, age 22, had admitted his involvement in the attack in March near the Science Museum in Shimcha Choi, but refused to name his accomplices. His trial opens on the 27th of June, and he was remanded in custody after prosecutors opposed bail on the grounds that other suspects are still at large. British engineer Sarah Wilson appeared this morning in Chunwan Magistracy, where her lawyers argued that her car was not responsible for the deaths of 8 feral cows on Lantau Island in June last year. They said damage to her car would have been more substantial had she hit them. They added that cattle hair found on her vehicle could have come from animals which very often wander near the car. Wilson, who was arrested and released on bail after the cows were run over, has denied a charge of failing to submit a police form within 21 days. Prosecutors insisted that the trial only focused on her failure to provide information to the police within the time limit. Arthur Ricchiola, ATV News.
Police in Beijing have held anti-terror drills in the main railway station following a suicide bomb and knife attack in Xinjiang on Wednesday. Emery Sim reports.
Urumqi South Railway Station was still bustling this morning with hundreds of migrant workers arriving from across the country for seasonal work. Many sat on their bags in the station plaza, waiting for trains to transfer to other parts of the region. Authorities are taking no chances and deployed units of armed police carrying assault rifles and sharpened black metal poles with hand grips to march around the station grounds. Black police vans and armoured troop transports were also parked in front of the station's entrance. State media said 2 religious extremists have been pinpointed as the alleged assailants behind the suicide bombing and knife attacks that took place at the station on Wednesday. Both suspects were killed in the incident. One of them has been identified as a 39-year-old man from Aksu in southern Xinjiang. President Xi Jinping demanded decisive action against terrorism after the attack, which came at an awkward time for him, just as he was wrapping up a 4-day tour of Xinjiang aimed at underlining the central government's commitment to security in the region. It's unclear if the president was anywhere near Urumqi at the time. The attack prompted police in the capital, Beijing, to hold a terror response drill at the city's main railway station in the early hours of this morning. Police based at the station arrived on the scene of a hypothetical attack within 50 seconds, with anti-terror, SWAT, criminal investigation and traffic control units all turning up within 15 minutes. Beijing has called the attackers terrorists, a term it uses to describe Islamist militants and separatists in Xinjiang who have waged a sometimes violent campaign for an independent East Turkestan state. In the US, the State Department also said all signs pointed to the attack being the work of terrorists.
The United States condemns the horrific and despicable acts of violence against innocent civilians at the train station in Urumqi in Xizang Uyghur Autonomous Region of China. This appears to be an act of terrorism that targeted random members of the public.
Meanwhile, Beijing has expressed strong frustration over a US report that criticized China for failing to provide sufficient evidence of terrorist involvement in recent attacks on the mainland and its reluctance to step up counter-terrorism cooperation with Washington. In a statement issued late last night, Foreign Ministry spokesman Qin Gang accused the US of double standards and making irresponsible remarks. In March, 29 people were killed when what the central government says were Uyghurs attacked passengers with knives at a train station in southwest Yunnan province. Last October, authorities said 3 Uyghurs killed themselves and 2 tourists when they rammed their car into a group of people in Beijing's Tiananmen Square.
Overseas, dozens of people have been arrested in the Philippines following an international operation to smash a sextortion syndicate. And Ukraine appears a step closer to civil war after pro-Russia separatists shot down 2 government helicopters. Benework reports.
For weeks, law enforcers in eastern Ukraine have been allowing separatists to roam free and take over government buildings. But now Kiev has had enough. Today, the government sent helicopters to attack their positions in what it called an anti-terror operation. But 2 were shot down by the separatists. 2 of the pilots were killed. Moscow said the operation buried a peace deal Kiev agreed to last month. Philippine police and Interpol say they have dismantled an international sextortion racket, arresting 58 people in raids in 7 areas and seizing 250 laptops and computers. The Filipino syndicate preyed on foreigners overseas who engaged in cybersex.
After getting acquainted with the victims, and successful exchange of online chat conversations, they will invite and further entice their would-be victims to use video call to engage in cyber sex, and this will be recorded unknown to the victim.
They then threatened to upload their sex videos unless they paid them $500 to $2,000. Thousands of dollars have been extracted from hundreds of victims in Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, the US and Britain in the last 3 or 4 years. The extortion led to the suicide of a 17-year-old British boy, according to Scotland Yard. A subway train in the South Korean capital, Seoul, crashed into another today, injuring about 170 people. One subway car was derailed and passengers walked a short distance along the tracks to a station. Many of the injuries were caused by passengers jumping from the subway cars onto the tracks. An on-board announcement initially told passengers to stay inside, but most people ignored it and forced the doors open to escape, according to witnesses. The accident came just over 2 weeks after a ferry capsized and sank, leaving 300 dead or missing. Most of those who died in the disaster were children, told by the crew to stay inside the vessel, even as they jumped ship. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
In sports news, motor racing fans have marked the 20th anniversary of the death of Ayrton Senna, and team owners in the NBA have backed a call to force the sale of Los Angeles Clippers.
Just days after the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers was banned from the sport for life and fined heavily, NBA team owners backed a move to force Donald Sterling to sell his franchise. Sterling was penalised after he was heard on 2 tapes telling his girlfriend not to mix with blacks and bring them to Clippers matches. The NBA acted swiftly, insisting that racism has no place in the sport. Sterling, who's 80, could go to court to challenge the sale, but he may want to cash in. He bought the Clippers for $12 million 3 decades ago, but the team is now worth almost $1 billion. Current and former Formula One racers rubbed shoulders with thousands of fans as they marked the 20th anniversary of the death of Brazilian racing legend Ayrton Senna. A memorial service was held at the Imola racetrack, where Senna's Williams crashed during the San Marino Grand Prix in 1994. A day before the Brazilian's death, Austrian rookie Roland Ratzenberger was killed in an accident during a qualifying round on the same circuit.
It's 20 years ago and was a very sad weekend for F1 on that time, but obviously that's in the past and now we remember that.
Senna won a quarter of his 162 races and was world champion 3 times.
It's a sad moment, but on the other side, we all have good to remember here. We all had great times here, and today we give the respect back to Ayrton. But it's a good thing to do too.
Senna was 34 when he was killed, and his death forced racing officials to tighten safety. The move worked, and no driver has been killed in a Formula One race since.
Finance news: Hong Kong stocks closed flat today as gambling shares and mainland rail counters jumped. The Hang Seng Index gained 126 points to finish at 22,260 on turnover of $48 billion. Shares in casino companies rose after Macau gambling revenue grew in April, while Chinese rail stocks jumped on news of increased infrastructure investment plans. Let's have a look at overseas markets, starting in the U.S. The Dow Jones is down 20 points. And over in Europe, the London FTSE is trading almost flat. In Frankfurt, the DAX is trading 48 points lower, and in Paris, the CAC is 32 points lower. Now let's take a look at U.S. dollar exchange rates. It's 1.38 to the euro, 1.68 to the pound, and 102 Japanese yen to $1 US. Now the weather forecast for the next few days. Cloudy with a few showers tomorrow. Temperatures will range from 23 to 27 degrees. Here's a look at the weather around the world. all the news for now. Thank you for watching ATV. I'm Emily Sue. Have a good weekend and good night.
Coming up, Life's a Beach. Loving hearts, loving bands. Now apply on the ATV website. Release your positive energy with music. This Saturday, get extra amusement from our fabulous Korean Hour and wait until you come to the final destination where you will be welcomed by endless tears and heartwarming laughter. Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation Special. Korean Hour. You are my destiny. Saturday afternoon at 5:30.
It's obvious which family is better prepared. Protect yourself from mosquito bites while outdoors. Wear light-colored and long-sleeve clothing. Apply mosquito repellent and avoid staying in scrubby areas. Practice good personal protection against mosquito bites to prevent mosquito-borne infections, such as dengue fever and Japanese encephalitis.
You don't have to go to Japan. You're already there. Follow Begin Japanology into the world of Japanese culture. Experience the traditional and modern life. Reveal the pursuit of romance and perfection. Every angle presents a unique Japan. Begin Japanology, Saturday and Sunday night at 8:30. These giant 8-armed creatures may look creepy, but never underestimate its intelligence. Searching deep down in the North Pacific, biologists find new insights into the brilliant octopus. Science on the Seven Seas, Monday night at 8:30. How much do you know about the brain? Every move you make, any pain you feel, it's the brain that takes control. Researching the amazing world of the nerve center of the human body. There's always more scientists are eager to know. Documentary World, The Mysteries of the Brain, Saturday night at 9.
The following program contains dangerous actions performed by professionals. Viewers are reminded not to imitate.
The small town of Biarritz on the French Atlantic coast is an extravagant beauty, sophisticated but also wild. Evening after evening, people gather outside the casino to watch the surfers. This time there's rock and roll on the sea, a performance of tandem surfing. Biarritz long ago became a paradise for surfers from all over the world. The starchy splendour of the past is gone, supplanted by laid-back athleticism.
I cannot move my arms anymore. The semi-final in Kosti Bosque, very hard.
The other Biarritz doesn't wake up until the last surfers are exhausted. The Biarritz of the Belle Époque. The Hôtel du Palais once catered for kings, princes and lords. Today its guests are the financial nobility, basking in the splendour of a five-star world. Biarritz owes its fame to the French Emperor Napoleon III and his Spanish consort Eugénie de Montijo. The couple spent their honeymoon here. The Infanta loved the place, especially since it was so close to her homeland. To make his young wife happy, the Emperor built her a summer residence, a small palace. Before long, Biarritz became the most sophisticated seaside resort in Europe, and it has lost none of its charm, even today. The beach attracts sun lovers from all over the world, but for tourists who don't know the sea, swimming can be dangerous. Well-trained and strict, the lifeguards are the stars behind the scenes.